Hi everyone, welcome back. So, I know it's been a little while since I did a video because I have been traveling. I'm actually doing this video live from Los Angeles, California. And I received an email on March 13th, 3 days ago, from what appears to be an African woman. Not sure where she's located. I won't reveal her name. But I thought the email was very interesting. And I get emails all the time from various people who want me to talk about different topics as it relates to relationships, things I've already talked about, like cuckolding, BDSM, things that they find interesting and things that they want me to kind of elaborate more on because they've taken a liking to some of my videos. And so I always feel really excited when I get these kinds of emails because it sparks a new video topic for me. So this is, granted, this email, right, it does kind of build upon things I've already talked about, right? But I think she asks some like very specific questions that are a little bit different. And that's why I'm a bit excited, because I'm about to just go ahead and get into it. So, by the way, I don't know how long this video is going to be, considering she asks a lot of questions. Like, yo. And she's writing a paper, right? She's doing research for her class. So I'm just going to read you guys the email that she sent me. And I'm just like, whoa. Whoa. Wait a minute. Okay. So she says, hello. I saw some of your videos on YouTube and thought I might ask you some questions. I am doing a report for my gender and sexuality studies class, and I am focusing on African Americans and their sexuality. I just want to know where the freak she is, right? I did send her a reply email after I read through all of her stimulating questions because I needed to clarify some things with her, but she has not. Let me see. I don't think she replied back to me yet. I don't know why. Maybe she's nervous based on the reply email that I sent, because I know I can be very direct, right, with my words. But I'm gonna read you guys her email first, and then I'll address the questions that I sent to her to clarify. I was gonna hold off and do this video after she replied, but I just felt motivated, right? I was just watching some of my videos on YouTube, and sometimes when I watch myself, I get inspired by myself. I'm self-motivated. So I'll watch my videos, I'm just like, damn, girl, first of all, you so beautiful and you so sexy. Then I'll be like, damn, you so smart. You should get back on here and make another video. So that's why sometimes I go back and watch my videos. Y'all think my videos be for y'all, but they really be for me sometimes. I literally go back and watch my own videos and be entertained by myself. I just love myself. Okay. So she says, I saw some of your videos relating to some of the topics I am researching. I've been asking others some questions to get a general consensus of some topics. It would help me greatly. You have seemed to talk about some of these questions. Yes, yeah. If you could reply to this in a video, that will be better, or just reply to this is fine. No, it's better if I reply in a video, okay? I do enough writing with my psychological reports. What's up, Stanley? And you guys feel free to chime in. You guys who are watching this video live on Facebook, feel free to chime in. Now, for the people who end up watching this video on YouTube, y'all be late. y'all be late, because of course I record my videos on Facebook because Facebook just is a better platform for that. So she opens with the first question. She says, now some of the questions were a bit confusing, so I did like send her a reply email, right? And I said for her to clarify. So she says, do you think the idea of marriage today is still modeled by Western and European ideals of what a marriage should be? And I'm like, what? What? So I think I was a bit thrown off because, like, if you guys know me, like, I'm a very concrete thinker. That's just the way my mind works. Like, you have to, like, spell it out sometimes for me to, like, get it. Because, like, I overanalyze things, right? So, like, I be wanting to make sure, like, we're on the same page, right? We're saying the same things. Because she can be saying Western European ideals, and I can think she's talking about one thing, and she can be talking about something totally different. So I did send her a reply email. To clarify, I'm like, wait, what do you mean by traditional Western marriage relationships? Because we could be talking about something totally different here. But I'm just going to go with what I think she means. So when she says, because she kind of like, she touches on the whole Western European ideal, right, of what marriage should be. She kind of talks about that juxtaposed against traditional African relationships or marriage. And I'm just like, okay, I could come up with an assumption on what I think she means. So Western European, basically, we know what that looks like, right, between a man and a woman. And it's monogamous, right? We know in American Western culture, they don't really, first of all, polygamy is illegal. So they don't really practice that here. On this side, it's just more commonly practiced like Eastern side, right, of the world. And our marriages are typically between a man and a woman. But they can be same-sex, right? Same-sex marriages. So I would say, and the thing I notice about her questions is like they're leading questions. So she's framing it in a way where she already has her mind. She already has her perspective on it. It's clear the perspective that she is taking. It's like she has a persuasive argument, I think, that she's trying to build upon for her research. And she kind of just wants me to kind of go along with that, right? It doesn't seem like she's asking like an open-ended question to see what my perspective is. She's just kind of asking these leading questions to gear me to speak on things in a certain way. So, like, if you already have your perspective, why ask me, right? Because she's saying, do you think the idea of marriage today is still modeled by Western and European ideals? You're pretty much, like, all of her questions are, like, written this way. You're answering your own question. So the topic, you guys should be able to see what the topic is just based on the title of this video. Stanley says, no, I would say true modern marriage requires individuals to choose freely who they want to spend the rest of their life with. That's what Americans do, right? It's not arranged. It's not forced. The Western and European marriages she speaks of is the arranged marriages set up by families. That is not, that's not Western and European. Stanley, what are you talking about? And you say that you're in a graduate program? Okay, Danielle, chill out. Chill the freak out. That's not, no, that's not. Sometimes I like to read the comments, but sometimes I don't because it takes me off track. And sometimes your comments are just totally not relevant to the topic of the video. So I'm just going to focus on this email here. So Western and European is basically marriage between a man and a woman. They're not arranged marriages. That's not what we're doing in the Western world. We live in the Western world. Hello. This is America. This is the West. Okay? That's not how marriages are. They're not arranged here. People have the right to freely choose, but I don't think that's what she's hinting towards. That's why I did send a reply email to just be more specific about what do you mean. We have to qualify what do you mean by Western European? Because that can take on many different connotations, right? That can mean marriage between a man and a woman. You know, that can mean monogamy. That can mean many different things. That can mean, you know, patriarchal, where the man is usually the head of the household. So what do you mean by Western European? I'm just going to say all of the above, right? So between man and a woman, monogamous, and patriarchal. All right, we'll go with that. And basically, clearly, yes, but I think that we are kind of deviating away from that template, right, of how marriage has traditionally been. And the thing about marriage, and I think in America, it's so tainted. Like, people get married just for the wrong reasons. It's just half of marriages end in divorce, right? 1 out of every 2 marriages end in divorce, and that statistic has been consistent across time. I'm talking about like decades. I remember my thesis for my undergraduate degree at Florida State University was on marital divorce. And I remember that statistic very clearly, that was the statistic back then, and that is still the stat today, right? That number didn't change. So we're talking about 1 out of every 2 marriages. That's like a very risky thing, right, to pursue, like to get married, because it's a 50% chance that your marriage is just not going to work. So why get married? So many factors play into that, and I think on a large scale, it's like societal norms, societal perspectives, like there are societal influences that are perpetuated in mainstream media, and people are just like robots that they follow. They're so conditioned to kind of just mimic what they see on TV, what they see in mainstream media, and so that does affect interpersonal relationships between men and women. Much of what you see of how men relate and treat women, and vice versa, how women relate to and treat men, is what they have been conditioned, right, to believe, right, to be, the way that they have been conditioned to be, socialized to be. That's just the way our society is. So that's just reality. That's just what it is, you know. So like I think also it kind of plays into the reason why I'm 37, I'm still single, because I don't want to date a robot. Most people are just bots. You know, I can tell because they're not free thinkers. They're thinking and they're behaving in the way that society has trained them and conditioned them to be, right? Stanley, just sit back and listen. That's all. Just sit back and listen. Because I'm answering her questions. She wants to know my perspective, not really your perspective. So I'm not going to read your comments. I'm just going to reply to her questions in this video. So you can just sit back and listen. You don't even have to type. I mean, I know I did say that you guys are welcome to type. And you're still welcome to leave your comments. But I'm not going to read them, okay? So, yeah. You know, like, once I come across a man that thinks for himself and we're on the same frequency, then I can be attracted to him. But I'm just not, because for me, it's beyond physical. I come across a lot of attractive men, right? Like, physically attractive. But that's not enough. That's not enough to, like, reel me in, you know? It's just not. Like, I lose interest because we're just not on the same wavelength. He's thinking like society wants him to think, and that's not what I'm attracted to. Like, I need a man who is a free thinker. Our next question is, should African Americans seek more traditional African relationships with others? And I just see, like, that's the reason why I asked her specifically, can you clarify, like, what do you mean by Western and European ideal of marriage versus traditional African relationships, right? What does that mean? Because I think sometimes we kind of lump African to like this one this box, right? We kind of put like all of the cultures and all the countries into one box, and there's so much diversity, even within Africa. So what do you mean? Because you see a lot of like African marriages are modeled after Western European, right? Like, and especially modern Western European, right? Because you know we're talking about Western European, right? That's the umbrella. But then even within that, we have to break it down and compare the old versus the new, the modern. Things have changed. They call it evolution. I don't know if it's evolution or if things have devolved, right? Like we have gone like we're not advancing as a society because I mean just look at the stats. Look how many people are divorcing. Look at the movements that are surfacing as a result of the way people think, right? The way our society, like what we are, you know what I'm saying? The MGTOW movement, the men going their own way, this whole thing, idea about sex dolls replacing women, men losing respect for women, men thinking that they're the prize. I mean, listen, it's not to say that a man isn't worth anything. No. Men and women are both the prize, but that kind of thinking has shaped their behavior, so they're not really treating women like a woman should be treated, like, you know, a valuable person, opening doors, treating her to, the date, like paying for the date. They're not really doing that. And when I say they, we're not saying all, right? Because I know some of y'all be like, oh, that's not all men. Yes, we know that's not all men, right? Not all men have been swindled and have been conditioned to become a robot. Some men can think for themselves, right? And they know the right way to go. Oh, I just got a notification saying that my order has shipped. All right. So, but yeah, like I was saying, like a lot of so-called traditional African marriages look like Western European marriages, that they wanna be like us, unfortunately. And I said this before, it's like it's kind of sad as African American, right? We have this ideal of what Africa is, and we aspire to go back to the motherland, to go back home to a place that we never been. We came from, but we never been, right? And we look up, like I know I did, having like this reverence for Africans, native-born Africans, and just to find out that when you do like some thorough research, the mind of the African, not all, but a lot, has become conditioned just like the mind of the African American. So how can you aspire to become something that you're trying to get away from? That is a problem here. So when she says, should African Americans seek more traditional African relationships, it's just like, should we tap into our African ancestry, our African culture, our heritage? Not that we're looking to Africans for that representation of what a marriage should look like, because a lot of African men beat their wives. I mean, I ain't talking about discipline. Like, don't get it mistaken. I'm okay with discipline, a man disciplining his wife. But beating her, just a devaluance of a woman. Like, I'm really opposed to that. And you see that in African relationships, African marriages, Like, just a woman is insignificant. Like, a man is like way up here and a woman is just like way down here. And listen, I'm a BDSM practitioner, right? Like, I am a submissive, so I like the idea of power exchange when it's a mutual consenting agreement, right? And when a man is able to like respectfully do that, you know what I'm saying? When a person, like, it has to be a mature man. A lot of men are just like going along with what society has conditioned, has trained them to think of women, and just mistreating women. You know, it's the same mistreatment that you see in America. It's the same mistreatment that you see in Africa. It's just the same. So I don't know if I would put African relationships on a pedestal, but she's saying, you know, the traditional African, you know, meaning historically how they were. You want to go, when you say traditional, you have to go way, way back, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, way, way back. You know what I'm saying? To, like, the Egyptian period, when Africans, we had, like, kingdoms, you know. Maybe so. Maybe we should kind of model and seek to replicate those kinds of relationships, so that there is some order, you know, and women are held to a higher standard, just as men. Women are valued and appreciated. But then the other part to that question, she says, should African Americans seek more traditional African relationships with others instead of being with one man for the rest of one's life? And I'm like, that's why I was a bit thrown off, because I'm just like, okay, is she African? Because she has an African name, but that don't mean anything. I hate to say this, but I have to be very frank with you guys. A lot of Africans don't even know their own culture and history, right? They're trying to be European. They're trying to be like African Americans, and of course African Americans have been socialized, conditioned to adapt to the Western way of being. So she's saying, instead of being with one man for the rest of one's life, where do you see that at? Where women are in serial relationships. That's not the traditional African way of being. Where she said, instead of being with one man, you mean one woman? Because she says, instead of being with one man, you mean a woman being with one man? So you're saying that African Americans should seek traditional African relationships where a woman has more than one man? Is that traditional? That's what I was a bit confused by her questioning, but you know, I'm like, did you read your email, or are you just like typing really fast and just press send, you know? But no, to answer the question, I think I know what she's saying, right? Like a man having more than one wife. And personally, I'm for it. I'm for polygamy when it's done right. But that's the problem. Like, when a woman mentions, oh, she's polygamous, or she is down with polygamy, automatically, like, a light bulb goes off in a man's mind, and he's just like, oh, polygamy. He thinks like sex, and it's just like, are you that shallow? Don't get me wrong, sex is great. You know, I'm a sexual being, but are you that shallow to not see any other reason for polygamy? That should come, I feel like the more important reason should come first, right? Like, to think about sex as a motivation for polygamy, like, that's not where I am. That's not the frame of mind that I'm thinking from. I'm thinking in terms of building a family, building a tribe. So that's my perspective on that. And yes, I do think that African Americans, I mean, the whole question about should, though, like, I'm not really the one to say what a person should do, right? I think we all should do, if you want to say should, right? Ask me what I think African Americans should do. I think every person is entitled to do what the hell they want to do. I can talk about how I live my life, you know, because this is the thing about, like, I think being like a role model for other people. I think it's not that I'm the person to tell a person what they should do. I'd rather live my life as an example, and those who gravitate towards the way I live my life and are inspired and motivated, then we're going to be on the same frequency, right? And that's what is going to happen. Like, things happen as they are going to happen, like as they're destined to happen. I think sometimes we think that we have so much control over who we are and the path that we're on, when really our lives are kind of predetermined. I don't think we really have that much control. Like, things are playing out how they're supposed to play out, basically. So that's what I think. And I love my skin tone without the extra lighting that I usually have. Even though, I mean, of course, the extra lighting, it makes things a little bit clearer, I guess. But, you know, I like the way I look even here, too, without my ring light. But that's, yeah, I think, basically, I think that ideally that will be great for African Americans to do polygamy the right way, because we know that most African Americans, I mean, I think that naturally we are practicing polygamy. That's why you see women with a lot of baby daddies and men with a lot of baby mamas, because we're doing polygamy. We're doing it the so-called traditional African way, but with a twist, with the European twist to it, right? Because it's kind of like, it's tainted, you know? And we're not really building family. We're building family, but it's like dysfunctional and broken families. And I think ideally that's not really how it's supposed to be, but at least we're procreating. At least we are increasing the birth rate. And from what I researched, you know, we are number 2 when it comes to birth rate. Like, African Americans, we make a lot of babies here in America. We're second to Hispanics, I think. And whites are like a little bit further down the list when it comes to the birth rate. So we're up there. We're like number 2 when it comes, I mean, you already know Hispanics, they be making a lot of babies, so that would make sense that we will only be second to, or should I say Latinos or Latinx, right? But, you know, I think it's good in that perspective, because that kind of keeps our race going so that we don't become extinct, you know. So I'm all for that. But I do think that it would be, you know, ideally better for us to do things kind of decent and in order, and, you know, be beautiful to have children to be raised by a father and a mother in the same household, you know, or even better, you know, a father and multiple mothers, you know, sister-wise. So I'm for it. Next question. She asked a lot of questions. That was just question number 2, you guys. That was just question number 2. So this is question number 3. Do you think Western European style of marriage or relationships has affected, she says affected, but it's really affected African Americans in a good way? Some of her questions, I'm just like, I think these are things she thinks, right? The way she's asking the questions is like pretty much a statement. Just take off the question mark and just frame it as a statement. Like, these are things that she thinks, or maybe perspectives that have been kind of like ruminating in her mind. I think she's trying to build an argument. But she says, like, you know, these are some, she's been asking others some questions, or maybe she's been having some conversations, and these are things that have come up. But Western European style of marriage or relation, that's why I wanted her to reply, girl, so we can be on the same page about Western European style of marriage. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Are you just saying monogamy just between a man and a woman? Has affected African Americans in a good way? I don't know. I don't know if it's affected us in a good way. I mean, I can talk about other things that have affected African Americans. But I think our marriage rate is kind of down, though. Like, when you look at how many African Americans are getting married. What is the stat? They say like only 1 out of every 5 or 4 black women get married. That's pretty low. And black men marry outside their race more than black women, unfortunately. Okay, next question. In one of your videos, you mentioned that black men are more superior. This is when it starts to get good, because we're getting into like the title of this video, right? Like alternative sexual relationships and the whole cuckolding and, you know, that good stuff that you guys like for me to talk about. In one of your videos, you mentioned that black men are more superior physically. Do you believe that this applies to all black men? Physically, superior physically. Are you saying like physically down there? Or are you just saying like overall physically, right? I think I remember the video she's talking about. And I do mention that like kind of across the board in a lot of my videos. Yeah, like black men. Not only are black men packing down there, because I think I mentioned this in the context of cuckolding, and how black men basically are chosen by white men to fuck their wives, right? To do in the bedroom what they can't do. And not only that, but to speak to male dominance physically, right? Just the dexterity of black men, the strength of black men. It speaks for itself, especially when it comes to sports. Like, black men are the majority in the NFL, in the NBA. It's the reason why, you know, because they're stronger, they're faster. I just think overall, yes, when we look at black men compared to other races, and it's not me being biased, listen, there's much research and the obvious to back this up. We're talking about physically. Politically, clearly not. You know, black men aren't politically stronger than white men or Caucasian men. Clearly, I mean, you know, that's the reason why, you know, the reality exists for African American men and women in our society. That's why there are a lot of broken homes and black men are incarcerated. Poverty is rampant in the black community. Politically, that's socio-economic and political factors that affect the strength of a black man, right? In that way. But physically, I think yes. Yes, of course, physically. But does that apply to all black men? No, it does not apply to all black men. But I do think, I mean, because I think when most people think of like superiority and physicality, right? Like superior physically, right? That's her question. Superior physically, or physical superiority. People think of size and like physical strength, right? I think size is like the first thing that comes, like height, you know. Height, their physique. And we know not all black men are tall. Some are short. But just because a man is shorter doesn't mean that he's weaker. There are a lot of short, strong black men out there. And fast. And I just think that if you just were to just line them up, you know. Now, granted, I think there are other factors too to play in this. Because we got to be very, like, we got to break it down and be more analytical when we're talking and when we're making comparisons, right? So we have a lot of things that, unfortunately, play into this construct of physical superiority and how we measure that. You know, when we look at how many black men are on drugs, that can affect a person's physical strength. and their viability, you know, and they're on drugs for just as a way to cope, you know, with the pressures of life. And a lot of those pressures are tied into systemic racism. Can't blame everything on racism, though. I'm not that kind of person. I don't like to give white people that much power, because I think the whole idea and the construct of white supremacy, like, we give it power by the way we perceive our reality and how we attribute our own problems that we have very much control over to this dominant structure and this invisible hand of white supremacy. You have some, you know, so-called black scholars who like to do that, right? And they blame everything on white supremacy. I don't like that. So even when we look at like drug abuse, you know, and of course a lot of, I mean, people across the board, white and black, Asian, Latino, whatever, are affected by addiction and drug abuse and mental illness, you know. But I think, put that aside. Take that away. Remove that variable out of the equation. Remove, like, the whole, you know, addiction. And just, let's say we have a clean black man. We take the clean black man and the clean white man, and we're just trying to look at the physical strength of a person and between races, right, to make a comparison based on their genetic viability. I would say, yeah, that black men are faster, are stronger. I mean, put them in the ring and just let that speak for itself to see how it plays out in the ring. When we take, you know, a sober, clean, you know, unadulterated black man who hasn't been tainted with drugs or that of that sort, I just think that, yeah. I mean, it's been shown, though. Like, do I have to do this? Like, when I was reading through some of these questions, I'm just like, why is she gonna make me do this? Like, why, girl, you asking me this? Because you know what I'm gonna say. I mean, like she already said, she watched my videos, and her watching my videos has inspired her to ask these questions. And she just, I guess, wants me to make a video specific to the questions that she's asking me. I'm like, why you gonna have me do this? Because you already know what I'm gonna say. Of course, yes, I'm gonna say black men, as on average, right, are more superior physically. How do you think this applies to people of mixed races? Now, I like the caveat here, because, you know, she makes me think. So we're talking about mixed race black people. One drop of black blood makes you black. That's just a reality, you know. Black is a recessive gene. Let's say African, because what is black, right? But yeah. So does that apply if I'm saying that black people or African people of African heritage, are more superior physically than men of other races? What about the mixed black or African men? What about them? By them being half African, does that make them as superior? Or does it weaken? Does it make them weaker? Girl, you asking some real deep shit right here. You asking some real deep shit. But I would still like to say that gene runs strong and deep. Like, so strong that you can tell. It's hard. Like, even when the races mix, right? And we know, we've seen Caucasian and African people mix. We've seen what it looks like when an Asian and African mix, right? Latino and African mix. And you can just, that blackness, that African gene is bursting through that person's phenotype. It cannot be hidden. Like, you can just look with your eyes, with the naked eye, and see when a person has a slight bit of an ounce of African blood in their DNA, even when it's mixed. That alone should say something, the way the genes express themselves, you know, physically. that answers my question. You mentioned that you are into black men and are open to relationships for cuckolding. Do you think more people... So I had to that's another follow-up question I had to clarify, because I'm just like, girl, where you get that from? I never said I'm open to open relationships, right? Or cuckolding. I never said I'm interested in that. I said that, yes, I can talk about it. I can talk about a number of different topics, but not one time have you ever heard me say that I am into open relationships. And I think that's where people get things misunderstood, because they assume that because I say that I'm into polygamy, in their mind, and maybe that could be the Western influence of what polygamy is, right? Because you have polygamy done the traditional African way, and we would like to look at that as being more organized, more structured, as more tribal. It serves a greater purpose than just fucking. And then you have it done the Western way, European way, where, yeah, people just fucking. That's what usually comes to mind. That is the construct, the idea that comes to mind when you mention polygamy in the Western context. People think, oh, more than one fuck partner, she's down for it. No. That's a very immature way of thinking, though. I just think so. Granted, nothing wrong with having some good sex with multiple people who are mutually consenting and who are free of STDs. Nothing wrong with that. But that's not how I see polygamy. That's not really what traditional polygamy is. So no, I had to be very clear about that in my reply. I'm just like, girl, no, I never said I'm into open relationships. I'm opposed to that. I'm not into that. Just out here sleeping with whoever. Hell no. I'm very, see, I don't think y'all know me like that. Y'all clearly don't know me like that. Maybe I come off as very inviting. But then when Sharonda said exactly. But anybody who really knows me know, people who really know me, I would say my blood family, they know me. Like my sister, my biological sister knows me, you know what I'm saying? We come from the same womb, we grew up in the same house. She can tell you, I'm just gonna leave it at that, Some people really know me know, nah, man. First of all, I stay to myself. I'm very particular about who I invite in my space, and that's why sometimes I get very annoyed when people kind of fuck that up. People in real life. I ain't talking about y'all. I'm talking about people in real life who I have interactions with face to face. You know what I'm saying? And I invite these people in. It's just they don't know how special they are. You gotta be special, because I honestly don't. I be in my own space. I've always been like this. As far back as I can remember. Growing up as a young girl, I just been in my own space, and I'm a leader. So if I'm around people, it's because they want to be around me. You know what I'm saying? And I may want to be around them too, but that's just usually how things go. So to be out here just open relationship and just people coming in and who you? Who are you? You know what I'm saying? You gotta get to know a person. We gotta be on the same frequency. We don't have to agree on everything, but we definitely have to agree on the most important things. So no, it's just a two-part question. She said, you mentioned that you are into black men and are open to open relationships or cuckolding. No, I'm not into that. But I'm interested in discussing it, right? She says, do you think more people should experience these types of relationships? There goes that should again. People can do what they want to do. I'm not the one to say what a person should or shouldn't do. I'm very I'm open-minded, And because I can see things from different perspectives. I can see the benefit of being in an open relationship. I can see the disadvantages of it. And I'm not the one to kind of persuade a person either way. I'm just not. You know, only thing I can say is just have fun, enjoy yourself. Like, if it makes you happy, do you. If it makes you happy. I'm not the one to say, oh, you shouldn't be doing cuckolding, or you shouldn't be in an open relationship. Just because I'm not really necessarily into those things doesn't mean that I'm going to try to persuade or dissuade someone against that. Like, no, you do you. If that's what floats your boat, you know what I'm saying? That's what gets you up. You know what I'm saying? Do you. I think I have mentioned, though, I don't know if she saw maybe the video where I did say that I think that if that is your inkling, right? If being in an open relationship or being in a cuckold relationship, being in a polygamous relationship, being homosexual, if you feel inclined to want to do that or explore, like, I have said that you do it. Yes. So in that way, I think that people just should be honest with themselves, right? Like, don't put yourself in a cage. You know what I'm saying? Don't live in, because people put themselves in a prison based on what society has said is right and is wrong, and that is heavily influenced by religion. Where, you know, people get frowned upon if, you know, you're into like same-sex marriage, or, you know, you're into BDSM. I'm into BDSM, you know, certain aspects of it, like, you know, bondage and spankings and things like that. Like, I'm the kind of person, I don't give a fuck what other people think. Like, I'm going to live my life. I don't have to live ashamedly and to live in a closet just to make someone else feel comfortable. This is my life. You understand what I'm saying? So, yes, I like to be that example for other people to show them that you have your life. And if you feel that you're being pulled in a certain direction, there's no harm in that. It's not evil. You know what I'm saying? It's not diabolical. It's not harming anyone. Just, you know, of course, the obvious, you don't even have to really state the obvious, is that, yeah, you want to, like, you know, take precautions and be careful. But that's with anything. That goes with opposite sex, your heterosexual relationships, right? Like, that goes without saying. That goes even within a marriage, you know what I'm saying? Like, people think they're safe just because they're married to a person. Oh, like, they're free from getting STDs, or, you know, it's a safer way of being with someone than being kind of in an open relationship where people are sharing partners. Like, no, because a lot of times, even in marriage, people be frightened. That's sometimes the most dangerous, at least when you are in an open relationship and it's like mutually consenting, especially in the context of BDSM, because things are put more on the table. Like, people are more transparent about who they are. That's the thing about alternative sexual relationships. Like, things are out the box. You're not living in a closet, whereas I think a lot of times people try to fit within these stereotypical norms of how they think they should be. And they get married and they're just like, okay, I'm going to be with one partner. This is my husband. He's like, this is my wife. We're monogamous. We're heterosexual. This is just, they're trying to fit, right? They're trying to fit within this norm of what society has told them this is what you should do. But deep down inside, that's really not who they are. Not saying everybody who gets married. I'm just saying there are some people who have fallen into that trap of marriage and trying to do things the so-called righteous way. And boy, do they got some secrets. There are some things that are hidden under the rug, and a lot of hearts have been broken. So, yes, I do encourage people to just live your life. Know who you are. Discover who you are. What makes you happy. and walk in that, right? I discovered it was 2014. I think I came across the whole arena of BDSM, and I'm just like, yo, this is me. But I think I had already knew that. I think it just became more solidified, and I knew there was a term for it. I'm like, oh, there's a whole lifestyle, there's a whole community surrounding this. But growing up, like, I've always had like fantasies of being in bondage and being dominated. I'm not talking about just sexually, I'm talking about psychologically, by a man in a healthy way. Don't get it mistaken. We're not talking about abuse here. We're talking about mutually consenting in a healthy way, where there's a hierarchy in a relationship, right, to establish structure. I've always had that fascination growing up, even as a young child. And in 2014, it just became more solidified. So, live your best life. Because if you don't, you're going to grow old, and then you're going to look back and you're going to hate yourself that you did not go out there and live your life, that you're so consumed with what other people think. I'll be the first to tell you and to be that example to live your goddamn life. Do you think this superiority, I guess she's saying like black men being more physically superior, she says, is why interracial porn is one of the biggest search topics? Girl, you answer your own questions. She already knows this, but she just wants me to validate. I think this whole email, right, like, she asked me a lot of questions. This is like a research paper prompt, even more than that. This is more like a dissertation research prompt that she gave me. Like, she got asked at least 10 questions in her email. But I have no problem discussing it, because this is right up my alley. But she already know. She already know. She say, do you think this superiority is why interracial porn is one? Listen, come on now. Like, I'm like, I already said this. Why is she making me say this? Like, you already know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I do like to toot my own horn just as an individual, but I think sometimes I try to be humble when it comes to like my race, right? Granted, I'm very proud of my race, but I just feel like sometimes it's best just to walk in your glory, just to be who you are, and people will appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all never met me in person, right? But it's just an energy that I emit, and people feel that. White people see it, black people see it, people from all races see it. And I asked myself this question today, right? Because you guys seen the coat that I have. It's a bifal coat, which is indigenous to Senegal. And it has like different patterns on it. It's like a quilted kind of design. And I've been wearing that coat, and everywhere I go, people have just been complimenting me. I get showered with so many compliments. And at first, it was like, okay, I was happy. I was like, oh, thank you, But then it's like sometimes you get showered with so many compliments on the same thing, it makes you think, like, is this coat, is it really the coat? Like, I'm wondering if this coat was worn by somebody else, would that person get that many compliments? Or is it just the way I present myself? Because I think it's just the energy. It's like how I model it, how I wear it, Like, I am unapologetically black African, you know what I'm saying? And people know that it's an energy that you feel. People notice it. I do stand out just because of the way I dress too, but I think how I carry myself. Like, I'm not walking to trying to appease. Sometimes I notice like black people try to like appease white people, right? So they like talk a certain way when they're around white people. Or I noticed this, I don't know if y'all noticed this, but walking down the sidewalk, right? And I brought this up to somebody else who's supposed to be conscious, and it irks my nerve. But black people I don't think it's a subconscious thing. Y'all know I study psychology, so this is right up my alley when it comes to subconscious and implicit behavior that happens, right? Where people are walking, let's say a black person walking down the sidewalk, White people walking down the sidewalk. Now, we already know, like, the obvious, how, you know, some white people may feel intimidated and they may, like, cross the street. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about black behavior, where black people will literally give the entire sidewalk to white people as if they don't deserve to walk down the sidewalk. And when I know, like, because I've been out, right, with other black people, more specifically black men, right, going on dates, and that's how I know. It's like subtle things like that. I know that a black man is not dominant. You know what I'm saying? Certain things I pick up on. Trust me, I'm always like analyzing, observing, and it's an energy I can pick up. But it's certain like behavioral cues too. And not all though, because I've been on dates where black men stand their ground, they ain't moving out the way, you know. And another thing is just like, you know, it's a sidewalk. We all are entitled, you know, the world is for everybody, not just the sidewalk, of course, but like the sidewalk is like a microcosm, like, of the world. The world is ours. So when I'm walking down the sidewalk is mine just as much as it's a white woman or a white man. So why do black people gotta like move out the way? Oh, move. I'll be with some people and they be like, oh, move, and let her by. And I'm just like, as if to lay out the red carpet. Now, don't get me wrong, I have respect for people of all races. So this is not to say I'm trying to be demeaning, but I'm just saying, it's certain things like that. It's almost like creating this superiority where, like, oh, they're more important, so let them walk, give them the sidewalk, and just stand back. No, we both walking. It's room for everybody. And this is like pre-pandemic, and even during the pandemic. But I'm talking about like even pre-pandemic, because I know the whole social distancing thing now, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this is like way before this whole goddamn COVID. This is something I noticed. It's just like black people will literally stop their whole world, what they're doing, just to let the white person go. And I'm just like, no, we gonna walk down this motherfucker together. I'm not moving out the way. Or like I'm at a museum and, you know, everybody this whole space is for everybody. I'm standing here just as much as you standing there. I have a right to stand my ground just as much as you got a right to stand your ground. So what irks me sometimes is like, it happened, right? I've been on dates and like, I'd be like, oh, move out. Like, they'll be like, oh, excuse you. Like, the person that I'm with, right? You trying to tell me like, oh, like, step out the way to let the white people. I'm just like, they can go around. Like, why do I have to? I'm not doing that. And I get in a whole argument with a person. I'm just like, I can be stubborn, but no, I know who I am. I don't have to move out nobody's way because I'm not in nobody's way. But it's just our subconscious perception of how we view the world, ourselves in the world. And I view myself differently. I'm not moving out the way. I'm walking down the sidewalk today, and this white woman literally rolled down her window to tell me she loved my coat. And I'm walking down the street, and the same thing. This white man was on a Segway. I was out in Beverly Hills, and they literally like, they just stopped on their Segway just to say they like my coat. I'm like, is it really the coat though? This coat cannot be. I mean, I can show y'all the coat, but it's not that. I mean, it's a beautiful coat, don't get me wrong, because I got it and I got good taste, but yo, if I can wear a hidden camera so you guys can see like how much I get showered with compliments, I'm like, I think what it is that I do stand out, because a lot, when you look at the colors, and I noticed this, you say you're with me, exactly, Sharonda, and you know that mentality doesn't work for you. I know who I am. Like, come on, we are the original people. Like, I'm not, why do I gotta move out of the way? I think the thing about the coat, I think what it is that I stand out. And what I observe is that when you look at general patterns of how people dress, most people, including black and white, and we know that, you know, African Americans have assimilated to the Western European culture. So we dress like they dress, right? But just generally speaking, when I look at colors and patterns of what people wearing, you look, I don't know if y'all notice this, but what are the main colors people wearing? Black and blue. Those are the main colors people wear. And those are not the colors I wear. I wear multicolored, colorful. That's just how I dress. And I'm confident in that. My hair has its own flavor. You know, I'm not trying to assimilate and adapt to Western European culture. I am who I am. I know how to navigate the Western world so that I can work my way up the goddamn ladder and make a decent quality living for myself, right? But in terms of my culture and identity, no. I'm being me. Whether you like you get too old, you get to a point where you're too old for that. But even when I was younger, I just think I had this, it's a spirit that's in people. You either got it or you don't. You know what I'm saying? And until I meet my match, a man who has that same spirit. And I met a guy like that, and I dated him, you know. That was my ex or whatever. My last serious relationship. We did it for 3 years. And he was like that. He had it 10 times worse than I had it, yo. Like, to the point where it was, like, revolutionary. It was kind of dangerous. I was just like, yo, you gonna start a riot out here. Like, he was that kind of person. But, you know, I like that, like, a dominant black. That's what it means to me to be dominant as a black man. To just stand in who you are. I made a post on Facebook saying that much respect to black men who don't try to like soften their masculinity to appease white people and make them feel comfortable. Like, yo, be you. And I'm talking about the way you dress too, because I've seen that. I've seen patterns like of the way people dress, especially black men, has changed over the years. It's like, why you dress with them tight ass pants on? And the colors have changed, you know. And it can be, people say, oh, where people are just becoming more sexually fluid and not conforming to the traditional gender roles of what it means to look like, to dress like a man, dress like a woman. You can just go with that. But I'm like, it's something to that where black men, I notice even the colors are changing to more purples and pink, you know. Nothing wrong with those colors, you know what I'm saying? Do you. I like fashion, so listen. Do you. I'm just making, this is my observation and interpretation. You make an observation and you try to translate, what does that mean, right? To try to fit in. Trying to fit in with the dominant culture. You say, I really wish I can get a similar coat. People have been asking me where I get this coat from. And I got it from this African store on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn. The name of the shop is escaping my memory right now. Tafari Tribe, or Tafari Cafe. They go by like Tafari Cafe, but I think it's Tafari Tribe on Flatbush Avenue. And you said, I love that male dominance, but some are over the top. Yeah, you got the true male dominance, and then you got the over the top. I think you're talking about like toxic masculinity, when that really is that's really telling, right? When a man is like doing too much to try to prove his dominance, then it kind of comes more so like you're acting like a bitch. Because you ain't gotta pretend, you ain't gotta like do all of that, right? But when you look at behavior, especially in the racial context, there's so much. Because I read people, y'all. And that's what I think. It's just, I don't know, I get turned off. Now, unless a man knows who he is, then, because we all have flaws, right? So I've been with men, and it's just like, yo, you trying to be hard, but you're not really hard. You know what I'm saying? I talked about this in the video, how the fake ass Black Panther, just fake. You ain't gonna do nothing. You ain't shooting no white person. You're not starting a riot. You're not doing nothing. You're submissive and you're going along with the go along. You're a conformist and you're wearing a costume. I'm not about to get into that. I made a video on that. I have nothing against Black Panthers. I'm talking about this one particular individual, okay? Was trying to be a Black Panther. Not really a Black Panther. So, just toxic masculinity. That's what it is. And he did some things on a, like, I had to cut his ass off. Because it's just, you're acting like a bitch. You're not a man. You know? I know a man. Black male revolutionaries. Yeah, it's just, but you know, but as a black woman, listen, I don't want to be the one to just like, because black men already got enough shit they're dealing with, you know what I'm saying? And it's fucked up. It's fucked up, you know, that that black man got to fight the system, got to fight the white man, then he got to come home and fight the black woman, and what black man, like they say, want to deal with that. But you got to just have respect for the black woman and know she got your back. The problem happens when you don't, you know what I'm saying? Because you've been tainted. You've been in some bad relationships and you kind of carrying that anger and that hurt that you have that the system has partly put into you. You've internalized that, right? And then you projecting that shit onto the black woman. That's the problem. You got to keep your shit in check. You know what I'm saying? The black man needs to keep his shit in check. You know what I'm saying? And we support each other. Because just as much as a black man going through his struggle, the black woman, we also are part of that same struggle. We are a mirror image of each other. You know? But you see that, like, that anger and that hatred is being projected from the black man onto the black woman. And, you know, it just becomes fireworks. You know what I'm saying? We going at it with each other, and that's not good. You know what I'm saying? So the black man has to be strong enough, even though, yes, he is under attack, he has to still know how to be able to separate how he views the white man and the system, his anger, and be able to compartmentalize that anger and hatred and hurt towards the system, put that in a certain space, and don't bring that shit over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the cause of all your goddamn problems. You know what I'm saying? But that's a hard line to walk. That's a very fine line. You know what I'm saying? They gotta walk like a tightrope. That's hard. I ain't saying it's easy. Because it's like you gotta switch. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got this reality that you're dealing with in the outside world that you've internalized, and you bring that shit into your relationship with the black woman that you're interacting with. And just the anger, the bitterness, and it's the energy, you know what I'm saying, that she picks up on. I know I pick up on it. I'm like, I'm very sensitive. I pick up on it, and it's just like, I don't want to, I mean, I get it. I get your struggle, but can you turn that shit off? You know what I'm saying? Can you check your shit? The trauma, the baggage that you're dealing with. We all come with our baggage, but check it. You know what I'm saying? Check it. Check it. All right. But yeah, yes, I do think the black superiority, or just being black, that is a reason why, you know, interracial porn is one of the biggest. See how I kind of segue back into that? It's one of the, you know, it's a hot topic, of course, because we just a shit, you know. And I just say all that to say, like, black people, we the shit. We gotta know we the shit, you know. And I started off to answer this question to say, like, I like to be humble when it comes to my identity. Humble in the sense that, like, you gotta go out and shout you're black and do all of this, right? Just be. That's all we gotta do is just be. That's the issue I had with the fake ass Black Panther, because you're just doing all, you loud with it. You're doing, I feel like to so-called fight this system of white supremacy, or the visible hand of white supremacy, or what have you. All we gotta do is just be. Be. Rest in our identity and be. It sounds so simple, but it's not. To just be. Right? Black man, black woman, and be together. That's the trick. We can't be together. Black man and black woman have a difficult time being together and staying together, and especially when kids are involved in the picture, right? If you can do that, we can beat the system. Because all we got to do is just be. We be and we build within our own space, right? That's all we got to do. It's so simple. We ain't really got to fight. We don't got to fight them. That is because the system is systematic, right? It's systemic. It's structural, right? So the force that we're fighting is not like it's not where you have to strap up and get guns. I mean, you can if you feel like you need to, especially with these police that be targeting black men. But I think it's more psychological than anything. Psychological warfare. And you got to be a smart black man to overcome that. And all you got to do is get you a black woman, love her, stick by her, get your family, you know what I'm saying? Be a family, get you a house, build, get your business, build. That's all. Just be and build. That's how you beat it. Can't even do that though. So busy focused on the white man that you can't even focus and love the black woman. I don't like to get around so-called black revolutionary men that just always talking about white men, white this, white, like, no. That's too much energy taken away from what it should be focused on. The black woman is what you need to focus on. The family. That's all where your focus and attention should go. Your energy should go towards that. But they don't get it. We the shit, man. Nothing is popping without us. Have you seen the numbers? Like, look at it. And you can name anything, yo. The award show. No award show is popping without black people. They gotta include us. The whole thing about, affirmative action. They had to pass a law so they have us. No, they need us. It won't be popping. Can you imagine the award show without black people? That shit gonna be weak. We make it. The verses, we make it, yo. We broke Instagram with verses. You know what I'm saying? Instagram ain't never been popping like that until verses came along. You got freaking millions of people on one live stream. We make that shit. You know what I'm saying? We bring the culture to the so-called dominant culture. We bring the flavor, the color. We make it. Even porn will be boring as fuck without that energy that we bring, especially the black man that he brings, you know. And of course a black woman too, because that's why white men, they like black women, because you know, it's different. It hit different. It's a different flavor. Of course, that's why interracial porn is one of the biggest search topics. And not just I think also to layer with that, right? Not just because, you know, we as black people are part of the interracial aspect, but I think it's just something about going against the grain that people also like too. So the same thing with BDSM porn. It's different. It goes against the norm. Interracial porn and interracial relationships, it's just kind of going against the grain. People like that. More than so the energy that we bring as black people to it. Do you think interracial domination porn is wrong? That's interesting that she would ask that. Because I think in a lot of us, probably in every black woman, especially if you're a descendant of slaves, I think, we have that switch. You know what I'm saying? We have a button in us. It's like in our genetic code where we can easily submit. And I think it's easier for us to submit to white men than it is easier for us to submit to black men, I think. Because of our history, you know, with slavery in this country. And even the lingering effects of slavery that we're living in today, that society that we live in today, where, of course, we live in a white-dominated society. You know? They are dominant. That's just the reality. Politically and economically dominant, I must say. Right? That's just the reality. So I think, yeah, it's easy for black women to submit in that respect to white men. And I think that we all have that in us. That submission within us. It's like a code, you know what I'm saying, that is activated in the black man and, you know, in the black woman and the black man too. It's easy for black men to submit, and interesting enough, I think on one of my recent videos about black men being dominant, somebody commented and say black men aren't dominant, and I'm just like, and from his perspective, I think it was a white man that said it, but listen, truth is truth, right? And it's just the truth. Because if black men were so dominant, right? And if we talk about genetically speaking, doesn't genetics drive other behavior, right? Our genes, from a biological perspective, it drives behavior. So if our behavior is determined by our biology, our genetic code, why aren't black men dominant in our society? Why isn't that the genetic and biological dominance, why does not it get up to here, to the psychology of the black man, to drive their behavior, their choices that they make, so that they can take over and run this shit and run their homes? At least just run your home. If you can manage your home, when I say home, I'm talking about the family you created, because black men don't get it. That when you procreate with a black woman, you have created a family. So what gets me is how some black men just want to be obligated to the child. Oh, I take care of my child as if that's just a badge of honor and that's it. No, okay. That's like half the battle. You take care of your child. Okay, you want a cookie? No, that's not sufficient. You have to take care of the child and the mother of the child and have respect for both. Just saying that, oh, I take care of my child, I was like, that's nothing to me, you know. And so I sometimes I question. I do. I come across men, obviously at this age, I'm 37 years old, where most men my age have children. So yeah, I ask them a question. They get defensive, like, you have kids, what's going on? Like, I do have a certain thing with men that got kids, but you're not with your child's mother. I have an issue with that. You know, and I send a lot of those men back. I'm like, go and try to work things out with her. And they're like, oh, well, she moved on. She got somebody. It's just like, well, why? Like, because I feel like history is going to repeat itself. That's just what's going to happen. You're just trying to recreate history and make me a baby mama because that's what happened back then. So what has changed? You ain't changed. And I can tell you right now, I'm no different than the next black woman. Because guess what? We're all socialized in the same way. I tell men this, I be very honest, you know. Although we like to look at ourselves as, oh, we're so unique, we're different. How different are we? How different are we? When we sit down and really break it down, the way that, I mean, of course I have my different, like, of course, like, I'm in tune with nature, and I just like resting in my natural identity as a black woman. So no, I don't have a perm, and no, I don't wear makeup, so that's what makes me different. But I mean, relationally, when it comes to interacting with men, I mean, I think we're just socialized. It's a hard thing to have to break away from. It's a curse, I admit, you know, but a lot of us just think the same way. So it's no surprise why you see so many broken relationships, broken families, is because, you know, black women, it's just the byproduct of the way our society is set up. You know, we have learned to be independent. For so long, black women have taken care of themselves and been independent, and we have been conditioned to, you know, how can we respect and have reverence for the black man when really the black man is not even dumb? It's hard. Dr. Umar and many other scholars have said this, that they understand why black women sometimes grapple with having respect for the black man, because it's difficult in a way. Like, how can you respect something that, number one, often doesn't have respect for himself, doesn't value himself, doesn't have the confidence, you know what I'm saying, isn't head of the household? You know, it's just like, it's defeated. I have to be honest. Just like the black man is defeated, you know? He ain't running shit. What is you running? That's why he tried to, like, express his dominance in other ways, like in the bedroom, and be fucking really good and hard. But it's just like, okay, that only goes but so far. The bills gotta be paid. kids have to be fed. You know, it's not a good look for the black family. And I'm not blaming black men. I'm just saying, though, like, we do have expectations, and it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate, you know. But that's why we got to take responsibility for ourselves. Black men got to just take responsibility for the shit. Granted, the reality has been created through many generations of racial oppression, but Jesus ain't coming to fix it. White people not going to fix it. You got to fix that shit. You got to take responsibility. And black women, we do have your back. A lot of black women be taking care of black men, man. Come on. That's just in our nature. We're nurturing. You know what I'm saying? Some black women go up and beyond the call of duty. But do I think interracial domination porn is wrong? I think people are just enacting what's already in their genetic code. You know, and they're getting paid for it. It has become a profession. But aside from porn, you see that in relationships, period. Like, it's the reason why black women are drawn to white men. I mean, women just, period, are drawn to dominance. And if white men are politically, economically, socially dominant, it's clear that's what a woman would want. But then, in thinking in terms of self-preservation with our genetic race, then black women would be attracted to our own, right, our own men, to preserve our race, self-preservation, irrespective of his viability and ability to be able to freaking provide and take care. So it's like a catch-22. It gets difficult. It's complicated. It's complicated. That's why I commend black men and black women who are successfully married and working through the shit and fighting through the barriers and all the obstacles and the imbalance. Like, I feel like the power of the roles have been reversed, you know, within the black family, where black women be pulling a lot of weight. And I think that plays into why I'm still single, because I'm just like, this, it's hard. But black women, you know, they carry the bigger part of the burden of the relationship. So they paying 50%, sometimes more than 50% contribution, financial contribution towards the bills. They carrying a baby for 9 months. They taking care of the baby when it's born. That's a lot of jobs, a lot of roles. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about roles in the relationship. And then black men just don't see it. They don't see nothing wrong with that. It's a lot wrong with that. That's too much. That's too much on a black woman's back, but we've been a strong black woman for so long. It's like, that ain't how shit supposed to be. Like, carrying a baby for 9 months. And it's the same way in Africa, too. I see pictures, got these black women in Africa carrying this heavy-ass shit. And don't get me wrong, we do it with grace now. Y'all seen some of my paintings where I painted this because I have respect and appreciation for the strength. But at the same time, like, I feel like we've been strong for so long. It's just like, damn, does anybody have empathy for the burden that we're carrying? You know what I'm saying? African women carrying this heavy shit on their heads and on their back, and it's just like, where the hell the men at? Why aren't the men carrying this? And then somebody will come in my post talking about, oh, that's just the way it is in African. It's like, no, it's not just the way it is. It's just like, does anybody see anything wrong with this except for me? And what the hell? Yeah, black women, we can be strong too, just as like the man. But I feel like, come on now, like, even research has shown that men in general, you know, are 60% stronger than women. Not to say that, okay, we can't lift 50-pound boxes and shit like that. Yeah, but it's like, damn, come on now. We carrying a kid for 9 months. It's like, that's a lot of strength. Can't we just rest in our femininity? Can we just be women? Can we just be? God dang. You know? I know it seems like I go off on tangents, but I have a lot to say. And a lot of this stuff is just interconnected. It is. So she says, whether it be white men domination of people of color in porn or black males and white women. Like I said, I think people are just playing out their genetic code. Can I say it's wrong? They're just playing it out. And it provides a certain degree of satisfaction being able to play out how they have been genetically wired. The epigenetics, right? It's just like our experiences in life can transform our code, our genetic code, to an extent where it can be unnatural, yeah, right? For black men to be attracted to white women, for black women to have a predisposition to want to submit to white men. That can, on one hand, be perceived as unnatural, but is it? Because there's so many different ways you can look at this. Sometimes people look at it like, you know what, it is a balance, you know? It's humanity creating a balance within itself. Even with homosexuality and people having same-sex relationships, it's just like, is that wrong? Or is it just a way that the universe balances itself? Gotta think about it, you know? It makes you think. Balancing in terms of for genetic survival for both races, right? For black people and white people. That drives the interracial relationship and the interracial marriage and the breeding. She asks a question about the breeding later down the road, but to jump the gun, it's just like it could serve a purpose for survival on both sides. Has anybody ever thought about that? The next question says, what do you think of sexual servitude, as in particularly whites who feel the need to sexually satisfy Africans for some sort of submissiveness? I mean, that has come up. Like, I've gotten a lot of emails from white submissive men. I read one most recently from a white man who identifies himself as a sissy, wanted to be my bitch, and I'm just like, I have no interest in that. I don't. I'm a submissive myself. I like dominant men, and more so I do like African men, you know? That's just my preference. African meaning even including African American, because African American is still African. So that's just my preference. But in terms of sexual servitude, I mean, like I said, whatever floats your boat. If white men want to be submissive to black women or black men to fulfill a certain need for themselves or for the black person, because it may feel like, oh, they owe it to us. They owe us this servitude in that way to make us feel empowered. I mean, you do have real relationships that are playing out this way, right? Like, there is a black woman. I don't know her name. I forget her name, but I've seen like videos and pictures of her, and like, it's a real thing. Like, she's a dom in New York City, and she dominates white men. These men serve her in many different ways, even financially, and they become her pets, you know. And she explained it as she's just basically getting back at white supremacy for all the many years that they have racially oppressed black people, and that's her way of regaining a sense of power, you know. Everybody got their own way of regaining power. For her, that's an individualistic, one may look at it as self-serving way to gain power, because how does that benefit the race as a whole? Does it? I mean, possibly not in terms of a direct influence on our race, but maybe it could have an indirect influence in a way. Because like they say, we all are interconnected, so what impacts one individual is going to somehow trickle down and have an effect on other people around us, because we're all interconnected in that way. But I do think, I said that I think we all have like that in kind of, what I call it, innate. It's innate because we're born with it. We're born with it because of epigenetics over the years, like a generational kind of coding that has been implanted in us, because we are descendants of a very unfortunate reality in history. So that, yeah, a lot of black women do have that kind of inkling to want to submit to white men and have that play out. And, you know, it's a way to be sexually satisfied. And, you know, sex is tied to our psychology. So not only are you're sexually satisfied because you're psychologically satisfied, you know, you receive pleasure from it. Some whites believe if they cannot help people of color in other areas, so this kind of relates to that. What I just said is that she says that the idea of sexual servitude or cuckolding is a way of giving back. Giving back. All right, so let me stop you right there, okay? To say that some whites believe if they cannot help people of color in other areas meaning financially, politically, can you not, or can you? I don't like the word cannot. I think that anything is possible, and we are all capable of doing whatever. See, that's the thing. I think, like, people, and I don't want to go on a tangent, but I have to address this whole idea of what a person feel they cannot do, because that kind of irks me. Like, we're all capable of doing anything. Like, I had a conversation. This was like, oh my gosh, this was, wait, was this last year? Time goes by so fast. I think it was in 2021 after I had moved back to New York City from LA. And I did go live on IG. I think it was my first time and last time I went live on IG. And there was an African who joined me, a man who, you know, was born in Africa. I can't remember which country though. I like to say West Africa. And like, you know, we was vibing on the live, right? We were just talking about like the context of what was happening in America, because that was around the time that George Floyd had got assassinated, basically. And then of course the whole domino effect that happened as a result with the protests amidst a freaking pandemic, right? So it was kind of chaotic and it was crazy. And I was sharing my perspective on that on the live, and I actually added him to the live, so he joined my live. And I did save it. So I think this live is on YouTube. But then after that, like, you know, I guess he just liked me, right? Because he said he had been following me for, like, a while. Like, recently following me. And, like, so he had hit my inbox. And we were talking. I like an intellectual conversation. And it's rare that a guy can, like, get me to kind of go back and forth with him, like, over an extended period of time. We're talking about like exchanging a lot of text messages through our inbox. Oh yeah, Sharonda, it was chaotic back then. And so I was a bit like impressed to see like, okay, he got my attention. We were talking. But then it came down to a point where we're talking about like how to solve the problem, you know. It's a global problem of this white supremacy, and I'm doing like quotation, like, you know, quote unquote supremacy. It's just like, are they really supreme? But whatever, right? Ran into a disagreement. Like, we were on the same frequency. We were like on the same page. You know what I'm saying? The whole entire time we're talking about like a lot, probably like, who knows how many messages we had exchanged, but a lot. And then it came to a point where we're talking about solutions, and that's the problem. Like, we can agree on what the problem is, and we identify and we bond, trauma bond, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Black people, we good at that, but when it comes to solutions, that's where we divulge, right? We go different ways, and it's just like, I was really annoyed by his perspective on the solution. And it was just a turnoff. I'm just like, you are African man. And we were talking about, like, he was talking about, like, the issues and, like, that plague Africa and African countries and the leadership. And he's blaming things on the leadership. And, like, I just got an issue when people just, like, put all the blame on so-called people in power, right? I feel like it's a cop-out. That, to me, annoys the shit. Not to say they don't play a role. Of course, people who have a certain degree of perceived power in our society and in leadership, of course they play a role in the oppression and in the state that people are in terms of their suffering. But I don't like to put that much, they ain't got that much power. The power lies within, right? And so it became an issue where just like, I'm telling him my perspective, but I got annoyed because he's like coming at this perspective like, oh, well, you know, there's nothing we can do. The leadership in Africa sucks and da-da-da-da. And I was like, yo, you got a weak mind. I'm very direct. I don't know any other way to say it, but I just said it directly. Yo, you have a weak mind. I don't like people like that around me. I like strong, dominant men. He came off as dominant, but when it came down to that, yo, you weak. Because if you don't know the power lies within you, it's what you believe. It's your perspective. That's the reason why people are in the state that they're in, right? That's the reason why people have conformed so much so to what the status quo is, that they don't see a way out because they are programmed. People don't even know they're programmed. I say, yo, you're a bot. You're a bot. You're programmed. Like, how can you say you're a human being? I don't even know. Or are you a human? Because I guess humans are programmed now. Like, we're just programmed. You just follow what you've been conditioned to do. So, yeah, I guess you are a human. But, I mean, I was going to say, like, yo, you're human. And your human ability is to be able to think for yourself. But humans don't even really do that. Like, humans are just, like, machines, you know. So that's where the higher consciousness comes in, and being a god. Knowing that you have that God power. So that's what separates the human beings from the demigods or the gods, right? But that's a deep conversation. And then that's where people split, right? Because the people who are programmed, who don't understand they have that power, look at people who know who they are, and they're like, what are you talking about? We don't have the power. There's nothing we can do. We're just stuck. It's just like, I don't like to talk to people like that. So that was the end of that conversation. Even though we had spent a good amount of time building, it was just like, I just like threw it away because I'm just like, no, you're wasting my time. You're like draining my energy. You're not dominant. I'm more dominant than you. You don't have power. You don't know your power. You don't have power. You don't know your power, therefore you don't have power, basically. White people should serve their masters of black gods. You have to know who you are. You have to know you are the solution. Exactly, Sharonda. You know what I'm saying? That's why we still submissive. Because we don't know who we are. So people say they're conscious, but they don't really know. I feel like when you know, that's why I don't even know if consciousness is something that you can awaken to. Because, like, people kind of look at this consciousness, this conscious movement, like, oh, they compare it to, like, sleep, being asleep, as if it's something that you can transition from. You can transition from being asleep with your eyes closed, figuratively speaking, to awakening and having your eyes open so that you see. I don't know. Because it seems like if you could, once your eyes are open, they're open. And then your action will follow suit. Because your spirit is awakened. But that's where we're missing, right? Where we're missing that peace. So I don't know if that's the solution to the solution to the problem is just being awake or awakening. No, I think it's just a spirit. Either you got it, or you don't. Motherfuckers ain't got it. And I think they're just they're too conditioned. Like that stronghold. It's just too strong. It's too strong, man. It's like it's a stronghold that is on people. Has it like a strong bind on their mind, and it's in your genes. That's how strong it is. That shit is like embedded in your DNA and your makeup, your genetic makeup. So you just like behave according to how you've been programmed. And that's a whole separate video on how people are programmed psychologically, but how that affects your, like how that is intertwined with your DNA. You think that you have a choice, but you don't. That's how you think it's so quick to get the whole entire world to wear masks. To me, that was the most fascinating shit I've seen in 2020. And probably my entire life to see, and I've seen a lot of fascinating things, right? But just looking at that shit. Because I just swore up and down people were going to resist. And I think, yeah, people somewhat resisted, right? The whole pandemic thing or I ain't going to call it a hoax. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying to not have a deeper understanding of how the COVID was a tool used to issue about what we're under, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's happening. You got to see, okay, what is a real underlying thing that's happening? We know, okay, a virus, right? But beyond that, though, you know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I'm saying? And that's what irks me, because people just kind of went along with the went along, and the fear took over. You know, they just fell into the trap. And I was so amazed, and I just knew, like, nah, people ain't going for it. But you did see some resistance. Like, the resistance came along with the whole George Floyd. That was an interesting parallel to see, like, how that incident with George Floyd being killed, and people were protesting, and it was mostly white people protesting. But they used that, they alchemized that energy of resisting and trying to join forces with Black Lives Matter, because they were really resisting the pandemic. They were, because remember now, this happened amidst people being on lockdown. People were really tired of fucking being locked down, not being able to go to their jobs, not being able to make money from their businesses that they own. We're talking about middle class America, white America, right? Just regular people, you know what I'm saying? They were so frustrated and annoyed by that they wanted to regain control. So they kind of joined forces with the Black Lives Matter. They just kind of jumped on the bandwagon, because that energy, that movement was already kind of, you know, building speed, right, in response to the George Floyd thing. And white people just took advantage of that. I saw it. I'm just like, no duh, like, who wouldn't take advantage? Just like use that, right? And that's when you're seeing, like, you know, the looting. They took advantage. They needed a place to release that energy. They were revolting against a lockdown. We were supposed to be on lockdown, quarantine. Everybody's supposed to be like, you can't leave your house, remember? But people were leaving their house, breaking the curfew. They had put a curfew out, and this was in New York City and different places around the country. They were using that. And I was like, okay, good. I was like, okay. You know, and even like there were protests, I think, in the Midwest. I forget what state, but it was in the Midwest where they actually went to like the Capitol or the official buildings, and, you know, like the city hall, and they were like saying, you know, they were trying to fight against the quarantine, saying we want to go back, we want our jobs back, we want to, you know, open up our businesses. I'm like, all right, people got sense. They weren't really buying into this whole COVID shit, even though people were dying. You know what I'm saying? And the news was reporting, like, listen, this is a virus. People are dying. People can barely breathe. You know what I'm saying? So that wasn't a backdrop. The virus was a backdrop of it, but it's just like, what's really going down? You know what I'm saying? And white people knew. A lot of white people still know. You know what I'm saying? They woke too. They like, oh, they know. Like, yeah, our world is changing. It will never be the same, right? And they're using the virus as a catalyst. And the virus could have been like a pandemic, as a lot of people call it. Like, it was orchestrated to issue about this, and the whole thing about the vaccine. You got to get the vaccine to travel, and people are buying into it. And the virus being the reason why they are doing away with cash, going to a cashless society. Like, I don't sound skeptical, but it's like all these things have been prophesied, and it was already in the works, right? It's just they needed a reason to be able to explain away and make it make sense, right? And when it comes down to people's health, well-being, your own survival, okay, you'll comply, you'll conform if it means your survival, right? So, nice trick. But going back to the conversation I was having with the African, I just don't like that when it comes to solutions. Like, people just, like, they say like they're dominant. They say, like, you know, like, they're not, though. Like, most people are just robots, unfortunately. I can go on and on about this, but I had to just say that because it is related to this. All of this ties in together. And that's the reason why, like, sometimes I be an island of myself, because just people they're not who they say they are. People, men want to be dominant, black men especially. You're not dominant. Like, you're submissive. You're just going on with it going along. You're not a revolutionary. Like, it's a joke. You are wearing a costume, okay? You're a character. But people gotta wake up and see that it's just, you're not doing anything. The Black Lives Matter movement, the Black Panthers, like, what is, okay, it's a statement. Okay, you're making a statement. But what is it doing in the grand scheme of things, though? Like, you wearing that costume of a Black Panther, what is that really doing, right? It's reactionary. And just think of the amount of energy and brain power that it takes to constantly exist in response to something else outside of you, right? Why can't you just be you? Why does your identity have to be tied? That's, I think, the issue. Your identity has to be tied to your enemy, basically. The thing that you say you hate, or the people you say that are your enemy, your identity is tied to that. Your identity should be independent of anything else. Your identity, you are who you are, irrespective of anything else. But yeah. So that to me is annoying, right? So it just ties into this whole dominant, submissive, and I just think about, like, it makes me think about Black men I've come across who claim that they're dominant. It's just like, yo, you're not dominant. You're just not. You're not. I just got a notification saying that my phone is at 15%. I don't even know if I'm like halfway through her email. But you say they are trying to control. Yes, that's all about control. People. And so that kind of links to what the African guy was saying. It's just like, the leaders are in control. There's nothing you can do. Blah, 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 blah. Ew. You're not dominant. This is planned. Decades planned. Yeah, they are trying to control us. True words. Almost like feminism. They need the bodies. Exactly. Yes. And the more they can get Black women to join the feminist movement, it empowers them, which is kind of tied into white supremacy anyway, right? So that's why I already said this many minutes ago in this video. The solution is to just be. All of these movements, like, it's to no avail. Just be. Just be you. You know what I'm saying? And to procreate and to have your intact family. That's a challenge in of itself, right? For the Black man and Black woman to just be together and procreate. That's how you beat it. Can you do that? All right. John says, do not take the vaccine. There's so many different kinds of vaccines out there. You know, even I'm thinking about going to, well, I am going to West Africa. And of course, a lot of countries you have to get, you know, vaccinated. And who's to say what the fuck is in a yellow fever vaccine? You know what I'm saying? Okay, do you agree with the idea of sex should be used to gratification if they cannot help in other ways? Oh yeah, that's how I got on this tangent, because we're talking about white people not being able to help black people, so to speak. Help. I'm the kind of person, I feel like what's done for us should be done by us. So we don't necessarily need white people to do anything for us. What we need to do, whatever we need to do, we need to do that shit for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing they can do to help us. We gotta know. We don't need their help. We need to help our goddamn own self. That's what we need to do. But if you just want to have fun and take advantage of white people in whatever way, in a sexual way, in a financial way, do whatever floats your boat. Nobody's stopping you. It's not illegal. Do you think those who want to gratify people of color via sex is wrong? Who am I to say what's right and what's wrong? Do you think it's wrong? Are you asking me would I do it? Because that's a philosophical question. Right or wrong? What makes it, if it's wrong, what makes it wrong? For you guys who are watching this, if it's wrong, what makes it wrong? Because you got a lot of Pan-Africanists who say, oh, we should not intermingle. We should not, especially have interracial, according to Pan-Africanism. So you have to ask a question in a certain context depending on which lens are we looking through. Are we looking through the lens of Pan-Africanism? Because according to Pan-Africanism, yeah, it's wrong. Interracial anything is freaking wrong, especially when it comes to marriage. But then the funny thing that I ask a lot of Pan-Africanists, and I'm Pan-African myself, but I do question some Pan-Africanists, especially the leaders, who say, oh, you shouldn't interracial marry. But everything is interracial. The clothes you wear is made by a white person. The phone your ass is using. The freaking ground your ass walk on. You know what I'm saying? Like, all this shit is interracial. We live in an integrated society. So to say that it's more wrong for a black man or a black woman to procreate out of the need of just being able to fucking procreate with somebody who is viably capable of being able to have a family and keep a family intact financially, psychologically, because we do come with a lot of freaking psychological trauma, post-traumatic slave disorder. You know, everybody come with their baggage. Not to say that old white people or other races, you know, don't come with their baggage and shit like that. But it's reasons why people do the interracial thing. So sometimes that irks me because it's just like they want to claim, oh, you like look down upon black people who are doing the interracial thing. But at the same time, like everything that they freaking, they want to have this idea, oh, like they want to buy black on, right? But it's impossible because we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the resources. So your lights, your Wi-Fi, everything, most things that you consume and use, right, for your own survival and viability are based on what white people have created. How do you explain that? All right, I'm trying to hurry up because I know my phone. Ooh, 6%, baby. Let me hurry up. Do you think it's wrong for black men? A lot of these questions are pretty much asking the same thing, just in a different way. She says, do you think it's wrong for black men and women to be involved in these types of relationships with whites as a dom or a sub? I mean, you can kind of get an idea of what my answer would be. How would you advise whites on sexual servitude or cuckolding? Do you think black women... I always advise people just listen, be careful. Trying to do new shit, you know. And I like to explore myself, but, you know. If you feel drawn, then I guess you say you're prepared. Because, I mean, you wouldn't be feeling drawn if you wasn't ready, right? Do you think black women should also take a role in cuckolding? Typically, it's a black male taking advantage of a white woman. Should or how do black women take part in these types of relationships besides men? Where a black woman... What role would a black woman be in a cuckold relationship? Because a black man obviously serves the role of a bull. But you're saying, like, if a black woman is having sex with the white man, is being brought into a white relationship between a white man and a white woman, and the black woman is brought in, what would she be called, though? Not a bull, but what? Is there such a name for her to satisfy the white man? That's an interesting dynamic. I want y'all to share your perspective on this, okay? Because I am running out of time. Mainly so I'm running out of battery. Do you believe that black breeding of white women is wrong? When black men seek to impregnate white women. I know all about that. And I think it's usually the reverse, where white men breed with black women. That's what the real breeding is, right? Typically, you know, when we hear the term breeding, I mean, it can go either way, right? But I think there's a whole freaking phenomenon of white men out there who are desperately seeking black women to impregnate. It's a fetish. You know, breeding in and of itself is a fetish. You can go either way, whether, you know, black man impregnates a white woman or vice versa. It's a whole fetish. They just want to impregnate. They just want to put their seed in a womb of the opposite race. Now, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this, and I'm ending this video. But we can always come back with a part 2, so feel free to leave your comments and questions below. I will catch you guys later. This has been an interesting discussion, I think. It made me think about some things, and I welcome your perspective, your opinions, and I'll catch you guys later in the next one. Good night.